Agnes, back with Film 5, my little classes to go series, working in amber. One of the things I first learned working with amber is, though it's very, very thousands of years old, it's fragile. But like not so fragile that it breaks easily, but when working it, it's prone to fracture. It will fracture along natural stress lines as the original sap had flowed and hardened. It will fracture if you hit a bubble. It will fracture if you hit some piece of particle sand, dead bug, or whatever inside of it. It's a lot of looking into it. And for me, I have found, if you look into here, of looking for a clear spot without a crack. And that's where you shape. And when I started looking at pieces of early, again, late Stone Age, early Bronze Age amber, a lot of them follow the natural pattern of the actual pieces or shards, and they just round the edges out. So you'll find shapes like this very often, or you'll get rounded beads because this is already rounded, so they would like maybe round it into a circle and then put a hole through the middle. I find it's better not to argue with the amber, but to kind of figure out what shape inside of it can be shaped to, instead of saying this square will become round. It doesn't always want to. It may not have the imperfections, may not agree with you for that. So a lot of it is looking at the amber and sort of feeling where there's a place you can drill. One of my first pieces was a pendant, and it fractured. I've been working on it. Decided to try a little bit of heat with my friend. Master Baird was with me. It fractured it. I lost 2 weeks of work. But you know what I did? I saved it. So in my posts and pictures, you'll see basically I made a museum display where I mounted my rocks, some gravel, some leather, tools I had used, and talked about my process. And I saved my error, my fractured blown piece. And then I remade the pendant from that original, I believe it was Oslo Hoard, and hung it with some handmade linen thread. And so it's like a traveling kind of like museum display that I have now, so I can talk about shaping and tools. It's important to keep those mistakes always, 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 because one, you can look back to them, see growth. Two, showing your mistakes to others is an amazing teaching tool, and it breaches that wall of imposter syndrome of I couldn't do that, because it shows others that there is a process in learning. So, techniques in amber. We've talked about drilling. We've figured out where to do that. Looking at the amber, going with the shape of the amber. Shaping amber is relatively easy. So what I'd recommend, due to not wanting to go and have gravel inside of the house, I'm hoping to do some on location, maybe at a beach one day. I've just brought the goat skin. So again, $4 gloves I got the palm out of. I would spit on the gloves. I'm not going to do that. If you don't want to spit and that grosses you out, use water. Okay, that's totally acceptable. Rub it. And just keep rubbing it. Let's see if I can turn this so you can see my hand. Oh, perfect. Okay, normally I'd be spitting, but I know it would really bother some people, so I'm not going to put it in my video. And if you look, it's getting shiny. Okay. If you think of like a strop that sharpens a razor, that really makes sense. Now, if you really want to shape your piece, and you want to go, you can put the sand on the paper and mix it with your spit or some water. I'm going to use some sandpaper here just for shape and quickness. Now, this is the 150. It's pretty rough. I wouldn't go any rougher than this. If you want to, that's your piece. You got to kind of see what feels right for you, but I'm flattening the edge on this. I want to try and square it out more, do more of a rectangular shape. There's one particular bead I had seen in this shape in a wishing well found in Germany. I'd like to recreate that. Now, as I sand the amber, there's almost an incense-like smell coming up from it. It's wonderful. You can make perfume with this, by the way. So there's a whole other arts and science project there. So I did that. Okay. And see how the edges are white? If you were to take this and pop it in your mouth, again, legal disclaimer, don't try this at home. You may be allergic to the amber. I don't know. Whatever. Don't put things in your mouth unless you know they're clean or whatever. I know these are clean. I know my hands are clean. And I've preset this up to be clean. Again, pop it in your mouth. Saliva will help break down that dust, and it will come out super shiny. And that's one of my techniques that I use. So I would go from this to graduating finer levels of sandpaper all the way up to this really fine, super grit. It feels really smooth, but it's not. It's very deceptive in thinking that. So again, I find that circular motions work best. So I start with a side to side, and then I go into a circular. When you look at early beads and materials, you'll notice swirls in some of them, almost when you look at the sanding. So I'm thinking a circular motion may have been used then too. We're humans, we hold things, we do things in similar manners. So those are some of my simple techniques I use to shape it. Now, as for rocks, take a rock, rub it on the edge of the rock, and you'll start getting indents or lines.